Welcome back to Practical Parenting, the podcast that helps empower parents in the trenches, find joy in the process, and thrive through it all. I'm Christina Wales, and my co-host is Dr. Terry Nguyen, Chair of Pediatrics at GBMC Healthcare. So parenting is about building a relationship, a connection with your child. But what most parents don't realize is that when you have a second, or third, or fifth, you're not just adding one more relationship, you're actually compounding the relationships you manage, because now you're navigating and cultivating sibling dynamics, which is what we're going to talk about today. Sibling dynamics come down to teaching our children how to navigate conflict or problem solve, but it can be draining, especially when everyone is around each other all the time. So let's start by outlining some common problems siblings need help navigating. One might be disagreements, tattletaling, comparison. What do you want to start with?
I can start with any of them, but let's step even further back. So why is there sibling rivalry? Why do kids even fight? It's for your attention, of course. Remember when we did that episode about toddler tantrums? There's just tantrums. When they are emotionally dysregulated, it's tantrums, and it's because there's an unmet need, right? And the unmet need when you have a new sibling come along is that you were the star, you were the center of attention, you were it for your parents. And wait, I am not the star 100%, 24/7? Oh my gosh, what happened?
Yeah.
So that any kind of a big change or shift is going to cause, instigate some stuff with your kid. And then, there's also, so they're having less of your attention, right? So there's an unmet need there, attention. Now, when they're fighting with when their sibling has a toy and they want it too, maybe they don't have the words to ask correctly, and, they're just going to, so again, it's, how do you help them learn how to share? So there's a lot of role modeling involved, right? And then, maybe your kid is sick. And so then anything's going to irritate them. Remember, anytime you're off schedule, you didn't eat and you're hungry, you didn't get enough sleep, and now you're in the car to school or daycare, and your sibling just did one little thing. On a regular day, you might not swat at them. Today, you're going to punch them.
Well, and everybody has bad days, too.
Right,
I mean, how many times are we in a bad mood and we fight with our partners?
So it all boils down to what's the unmet need, right? I'm needing attention. I'm needing love. I'm needing affirmation and validation that you love me. So I might test it in different ways. Or stuff rolls down the hill. Your child had a bad day and somebody took out something on them in school. Now they're going to go home and take it out on their younger sibling at home, or their older sibling, or whichever sibling walks in the door first and just even opens their mouth. So the first thing to identify is there's an unmet need for your child right then and there. And I think if just reframing that, you're like, oh, okay. And then stay calm. Okay. Yeah. I mean, how many times have we've said you've got to self-regulate before you can help your child or children regulate? So true. Stay calm, stay in control, and listen. So
I think we should add there too that these are normal. Like if your kid is upset with their sibling, and they hit or throw something at them or do something that you would deem inappropriate or even aggressive, that's a normal reaction for a certain age. I'm sure you can tell me what age it would start to become inappropriate, but it's really just a lack of, like you said earlier, the skills, the words, the things that you need to ask for what you want in a respectful way.
Exactly. And I love what you just brought up about developmentally appropriate. Okay. So a 2-year-old or younger doesn't have a very big vocabulary. So, they're going to pull it, and then you're going to say, hey, a better way of doing it is asking. But if they're spiraling and they're really out of control on it, here's the first thing. If they're trying to pull you in and you didn't see what was going on, you're going to say, you guys need to work it out. Okay? So as much as possible, if there's no blood being drawn, you need to allow your children to work out the problem amongst themselves. Okay.
I started doing that with my kids when they were about 4 and 6. Is that
Yeah, I
Because
think that's
obviously
very
a baby and a 2-year-old can't talk
right,
it out.
but a 4-year-old, should have 100% of her vocabulary that's understandable to people,
Okay.
in her family especially, but even to the rest of the world.
Sure.
Okay, so you have enough vocabulary at 4, and the 6-year-old definitely does. And they do know some consequences, and they know now appropriate and inappropriate behavior. By 4, you should know that you have to ask for something. You're not just going to grab it out of somebody's hand and whack them if they don't give it to you.
Right.
So totally appropriate. Okay, so first thing is you have to set the expectations of what's acceptable behavior, right? Hey, if you'd like something, can you take turns sharing? You can, and you want to model that with your kids when you're playing with them, right? Oh, hey, with the red Lego, sweetie, give your sister that Lego, or hey, what do you have, Anna, to share with Johnny. Okay. So model it, show them in real action. I think that's really the key. It's the teachable moments are the ones that while you're doing it, you're not going to sit down and let's have a lesson on sharing.
Right.
What the heck is that? Right. And then remember, this is like acquiring skills, lifetime skills, right? So problem solving and conflict resolution, really important throughout the stages of your development as a child into a teenager, into an adult. So back to the thing where if you're the parent who solves everything for your kids and does everything for them, they're not going to learn those skills. So they'll be the 30-year-old calling you and saying, Mom, my car has a flat. And then you're like, well, I'm in another state. How can I help you? But they're like, So age-appropriate conflict resolution, problem solving. I mean, you build, from small blocks and you get bigger. You don't wake up one day and know how to solve a problem. But if you learn, tidbits of it along the way, and then you can build as the time goes on. So think of this as a very appropriate, age-appropriate learning opportunities to problem solve, okay, and resolve conflict.
Yeah.
If you think of it that way, then you're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And they should work it out, And then, and if you hear blood-curdling, cries and there is like physicality in it, then yes, you do need to get involved, please. Don't let your children beat each other blue. Get involved, separate the kids. There's no talking to them, right, when they're all revved up. So just separate people until they're calm enough. Then you're actually going to have the conversation with each child separately, okay? Because just as we always want to praise and give praise and celebrate people in public. But if you are correcting people, correcting their behavior or pointing something that's not so great about them, you need to do it in private, just as we do as adults. You need to do the same with your children because they can weaponize it against each other. Mom said, you were naughty when you did that, right?
Well, and also we find this, and we've been having a lot more sibling fights in our house recently. And if you try to get them to tell their story when the other person's in the room, the other person always interjects and says, that's not what happened, or, she didn't do that, or whatever. And they don't allow the other person to tell the full story. So having them separated is a good idea because then you sort of get, and if the other person did do it and they don't want to say in front of their sibling, they might say in private.
So I'm going to take it a step even further. I love this, is that your goal isn't to find out necessarily who did what and who is the culprit for the blame here, because it always takes two to tangle, right?
Sure, yeah.
So maybe somebody said something that, set off the other person, but then they both got into it.
Yeah.
So one of my rules for my kids is if you're going to rat each other out, you're both going to get the same consequence, okay? But more than that, when you have them separately, okay, what's their unmet need? Ask them, how did this make you feel? What happened that made you feel this way and did this? What's a better way? What do you think is a better way to manage this in the future?
Okay.
So go for their feelings, how they're feeling in the moment, how they're feeling about what happened, and you're also helping them problem solve. How can you do this different next time? And you're not seeking who did what exactly so that somebody is going to get blamed.
Yeah.
Do you see?
No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just like anytime your child or you or your partner gets upset, they're being misinterpreted by somebody, right? Your feelings are hurt. You feel unloved. You feel unrecognized, whatever. But it's all about feelings. So what their unmet need for you and what you can actually provide at that time is that you'll love them. This was a bad thing. I'm sorry it happened. It's okay. We can move forward. Because some of it is also the competition for the attention.
Yeah.
And you have just given them individual attention, which was what they each were seeking, actually, right? And they were both seeking to be right. And you're actually going to take the hands away from the hot plate on this. It's not about, who was right, who did what. Let's talk about your feelings about it.
Okay.
And, how can we move it along? So there's that validation piece. Acknowledge their feelings, right? And then you acknowledge them, you listen, you validate, and you move forward, right? And we're not going into the nitty-gritty details of, but she did that and he did that,
I was going to say that actually leads in nicely into what we were going to talk about next. I do want to go back and ask one question, but since you dovetailed us so nicely into tattletaling, that's a big one too. Oh, Mom, she stuck her tongue out at me or whatever. And I'll be honest, my first reaction to want to say is, I don't care. And I know that's not the appropriate response, but sometimes it is so minute, but they just want to get at each other with these little things, and then they instigate the other person to,
right. So, Christina, what's behind that when they need,
well, what's the unmet need? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So there we go.
Yeah.
So what's the unmet need? And, go away from the tattletale thing, what do you need from me?
Yeah.
Remember in temper tantrums, we do a lot of diversion. You don't want to add to the heat that your child is trying to stir up, right? So you're going to divert, right? You're not ignoring how he or she is feeling at that moment when you divert, okay? Because I want to be clear that we're not trying to subvert or, push away their feelings. I mean, they're tattletaling. So-and-so, pulled my hair or did whatever. I said, how can I help you? What did you need? How are you feeling? What's up? What's going on? Okay.
Okay.
But I'm not there, so I'm not going to I'm not going to settle this for the two of you. Okay. You're going to have to go back and work it out with your brother or your sister. That's how you can approach that. Okay. Think of that as you have to fall off your bicycle many times before you learn how to ride. So you're going to have to learn how to manage conflicting situation or a situation that's challenging for you between you and your sibling. The beautiful thing is that siblings, most of the time, right, if it's a family member, you get really upset and angry with them because for some, there's still some safety because you're part of that family unit. But that also means as upset as you get with the person, you're going to make up too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So be reassured in that with your children. So
it actually cracks me up sometimes because they will be fighting and I will, intervene to separate them or whatever and talk to one person and the other one will go, what are you doing to my sister? Why are you taking, all of a sudden now we're best friends when 2 seconds ago we were arguing.
Right. So separate them into separate places and have your conversation with each individual child separately so the other one can't hear.
Okay.
So that satisfies their need for your individual attention to them and your validation of their feelings. And it keeps the other one out. So this child in front of you can have their full say and have their cry or have whatever.
Yeah.
But one of the needs, again, is your attention and they got it. And then to not have either sibling hear, you doing a correction perhaps because they'll weaponize it against each other. And maybe even you in the future. It's how many times have you had your kids use your words to point out, what you're doing wrong in the moment, right? So I think that's really the key is to take that pause, what's the unmet need that my child has here? Why are they doing this? Or you might say, oh, yeah, they didn't get good sleep last night. So, hey, you seem really tired.
Yeah.
Do you think we need to, go to sleep or take a bath? Whatever it is that's calming, relaxing. Do you need time alone? I mean, we all need separate time alone.
Yeah.
This brings me to something. So, I always talk about setting expectations so that kids know, what's expected. And then, and they also know then what the consequences when things aren't, don't go correctly as we've agreed. How do you get there? You need to have regular family meetings. And I'm telling you, especially when your children are younger and even into the, early teen years. I mean, I wish I could say that it would continue forever, but the reality is your teenagers aren't going to really sit for a family meeting probably. But if they will, do it. Family meetings, I know we've talked about it before, but the payback or the return on investment, the ROI is so great, okay? Because it means there's certain period every week or every other week, everyone comes together, we celebrate everybody's wins, right? We celebrate what's gone well, and then we say, hey, what didn't go as well? And everybody gets their own spot, and when they're talking, no one interrupts, okay? And maybe you'll have, if the kids are up to writing and stuff, somebody is a note taker, and then they can read, kind of the notes, summarizing. I mean, they're learning great skills for life, right? Yeah. And then at the next meeting, you alternate, somebody else is the writer, and they read, like, these were the things that we identified from the last meeting. How did we improve? What's going on this week? So it's a habit that you want to learn, but that's also a nice way of going, oh, yeah, when we have a place to kind of dump safely with all of us present, without critique or snarky remarks. I mean, you do have to set ground rules. You are allowed to speak your mind, but you're not allowed to use inappropriate language. You can't put anyone down, whatever your rules and expectations are. But I'm going to put out another
Maybe that's
plug.
your first family meeting, is deciding on the family rules.
Yeah. So I'm going to put a huge plug, and I keep, every now and then we'll come up with scenarios, and I'm like, yeah, how do you set those ground rules is through your family meetings. And there have been endless psychologists who've recommended it, and I've definitely recommended as a pediatrician.
Okay.
And when I did it, and, my kids were younger, it was pretty effective as long as I kept up with it, and I didn't always keep up with it. And then the other part is, if you have to get involved in the situation, what you're working for is, how can I make this a win-win for both children, okay?
Sure, the mediator.
Yeah. All right. So it should be a win-win, not like there's a winner and there's a loser. So you want to encourage compromise and collaboration with your children. You do not want to encourage the competition, right? But I'm going to say that's with a little asterisk. Sometimes competition as a motivator for things is not a bad thing. Like, let's have a competition about who can stay in bed at night, right? Or who can clean up the fastest. I mean, do you see the difference between that kind of competition versus, like, who's the best artist? Or who has, and when you praise, you want to praise a specific item. So, and if you do more, if you take the time to praise when they're doing something right, then it doesn't feel to them that every time you talk to them that you're only correcting what they're doing wrong. And it takes about 3 positives to outdo a negative. Yet, we're all wired as humans as to find what's wrong first before we find what's right. So it's a lot of active work. So I hear you when you say, and it can be draining. It is. Like, when I'm really, doing the majority of what I recommend to my parents, I'm drained. I'd rather go to work, okay? It's easier than parenting. Parenting is a hard job.
Yeah.
So give yourself a pat on the back, too. Like, you survived another day.
Yeah.
And you have great kids. And, yeah, they're imperfect humans, just like we all are. And this is a big science project on creating really good citizens of the world.
Yeah. So, you talked about with the disagreements, pulling them into separate rooms and things like that. All of that requires a lot of physical movement that we don't have at certain times, like when we're in the car. Fighting in the
Oh,
car,
yeah.
I feel like, is a big one that
Yes.
I feel completely helpless when that happens because I'm trying to operate a vehicle and the other person is kicking the other person in the back of the car. And so, what would be your advice, I guess, for that if we're having a disagreement in the car?
I'm going to say, can you guys work this out, or do I need to stop the car and pull over?
Okay.
And then you've got to go through with it.
Okay.
Okay? Because I
So
don't.
don't say it if you can't pull over.
Right. Because also you don't want to be disciplining your children when you can't actually really see them. I mean, I know there's mirrors, but this is
You're
going to be
supposed to be driving.
it's distracted driving, and so it puts everybody into a dangerous situation. So first, you're going to take a couple of breaths before you engage them. Stay calm, and stay calm and in control, and then move forward. And then you say, "Hey guys, can you work this out on your own? I'm going to I'm going to give you X amount of time to work this out. And if you cannot work it out and I have to intervene, or if I have to help you guys, I'm going to stop. I'm going to pull over. I'm going to stop the car."
Okay.
And then do it. And then pull one of them out. And then pull the other one out. So there it is.
Okay.
But you got to do it. I
Yeah.
mean, don't do empty threats. Like the minute you don't go through with a consequence, your word is zip.
Awesome. Okay. And then the other thing we wanted to touch on was comparison. So we touched on a little bit the difference between, competition and things like that. So comparing, children to each other, or I guess they're comparing each other. So you're not even involved, but, say you have I think this is pretty common more with like middle and high schools. Like my older sister is so much smarter than I am, or so much more athletic than I am, or, whatever the case is. How do you sort of handle comparison?
So you concentrate on people's individual gifts. Your sister is really good at that, isn't she? Right? So you want to validate what it is that the other child, right? Because you don't want to minimize a child for the sake of building
Sure,
up this child, right? Then you say, but you have talents too. And, praise this child's specific talents and skills and attributes. Again, always be specific, okay? And that's going to take work on your part, right? Maybe sometimes in families there's like a golden child, okay? Like everything that kid touches like turns into gold. They're a great student academically, they're a great athlete, yada yada yada. And then you have another sibling in that family that is not in that typical, arena of recognition. But there's always something that makes your child special, and I hope that each and every one of us has taken time to figure what that is, because sometimes early on in life, they need you to figure that out so you can help point it out to them. And then as time goes on, you can reflect back to them. But wait, don't you love drawing? And remember how, this drawing was, recognized at school, or, somebody complimented it. So be very specific and try to avoid using like one-word phrases to describe a child, like, she's such an athlete. He's such a great artist. He's such a great, it's like they're very good in combining music. I mean, it's the action and the skill and the attribute rather than pigeonholing any child into a one-word, athlete, star of the class, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, also encourage individuality and say, hey, that's what makes it so different. I love that you're able to do X, Y, or Z. And I love that your brother is able to do X, Y, or Z. This makes it so much more fun. And this brings me back to the family meeting, but also fun time as a family, okay? Like that, so that when you're doing fun time with the family, like if you're playing games, There's certain games that, one family member is better at, and then there are other games that a different family member is good at. And then if you do team play, right? Oh my gosh, Johnny, what is that? Because we know that you know all the animals in the animal kingdom. Or Mariah, what is that? Oh, what's that tune for that music, right? So this also helps build them up. Like, I have stuff to contribute to the team.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's really what it is.
Yeah.
Is like, you're not a standalone person. We're all part of a family, a team, a group at work, whatever. And yes, we all give our individual contributions, but it's the collective contribution that really makes the big difference. And like, where you're first starting to learn that is with your first group, right?
Yeah.
Your first village, your family, your immediate family.
I will also intentionally choose activities to do as a family that I'm bad at so that I can show my children that you don't have to be perfect at everything and that,
Right.
I'm struggling with this. Because I think oftentimes as parents, we know a lot more just because of the basis of age. And so it can seem like we're good at everything because we just have more knowledge and back history. But I try to choose something that I haven't done so I can model that.
Yeah,
struggle a little bit.
Yeah, that's something that's totally new, but always be true to yourself. Like, don't fake that you don't know something that you do know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can tell.
Right. They can see through us. And, so maybe you have one child that's not reading yet. So then you're going to play games that don't require reading. A lot of puzzles. I love doing puzzles because that is creative. That's problem solving, uses the problem solving part of our brain. Has nothing to do with reading or academic skill. I mean, it really is. Sometimes it's very visual, sometimes it's very tactile, but, it's not necessarily age dependent or where you are in school, right? And especially if you have a child who's not that excited about school and maybe doesn't do all that great at school, you don't want to just focus on things that you need to have, some, what do I call it, academic prowess, to get them going, because then, eventually that's going to cause them to withdraw even more. So I love that idea that, you're going to do something that's challenging for you too, or something new for you, so that you can model, how you overcome a challenge. Yeah, I play, even to this day on family vacations, we play games, and I'm a good sport. I'll play this new game with you guys, but I already know that I'm just not a big gamer, board game even. And I'm like, I'm probably going to lose, but it's okay. I'm going to do it with y'all. And, and I get a good laugh out of like how I can't see the constructs of a puzzle that, one or both of my children can really put together, because they have that space. What is it? Visual space, acuity. So, and then so remember, how do you build that camaraderie and that collaboration and that team atmosphere is to do activities together as a family that might be new and novel for everyone, or do things that everybody likes. Okay, so that's how you build that cohesiveness. And then everybody needs their individual time with you. So when one sibling's on a play date, maybe that's a good time for you to do a one-on-one activity with the other child.
Yeah.
Going back to what we originally talked about, like the let's say toddler who's just been displaced, not really intentionally, but there's a new baby in the house, right? What I always say is give that toddler a job, because what they see, okay, is that you're always, mom and dad are always just, surrounding baby. So bring your toddler or your older child into the story. Hey, you're going to be in charge of wipes and diapers every time we change Johnny, every time we change baby. And so they're feeling like, okay, I am part of this group that's convening on this baby. I'm bringing something very important.
Yeah.
Okay. So it can't take away all of the insecurities they have, but it makes that child feel part of the team.
Yeah.
And the other big thing is when you introduce a new baby to the family, it really honestly takes about 6 months for the older sibling to just adjust that there's a new human being in the house, and I am not the superstar anymore. And whoever, each parent should designate individual time with that child. And I am not biased towards mothers or anything, but, new mothers and babies have to hang out a lot. So I would recommend that, there's a 15, 20-minute period of time every day that mom and the older child can spend one-on-one time, and the other parent, dad, or whomever is with the baby. And unless the house is burning down, it's one-on-one time, because your child needs to know that they're still very important and they still have you for, specific times, and that other new thing that got in their way isn't in their face all the time, right? So maybe, then bedtime is your deal, you know.
I will say we're releasing this episode before Valentine's Day, and last Valentine's Day I did a thing like a week leading up to the day. I would put a heart and write something that I loved about each child, and taped it to the wall after they fell asleep, so when they woke up in the morning they had a little heart with their name on it. And I think that they really appreciated that, for one, because I didn't write the same thing on each kid's, talking about each individual qualities. But they both got to see, and they were excited about the other person's too, which made me feel good. And then the other thing I wanted to say too, and I think this plays a role in how my kids interact with each other and also with peers at school, is I've always framed differences as they need extra support. So, for instance, they see somebody that has, why does daddy need glasses? Well, his eyes need extra support to see. Or why is that person in a wheelchair? They need extra help to walk, And that plays into anything, even developmental delays with kids. Why does that person, well, they need just extra support in order to, listen or whatever. And I think that helps them when they notice a deficit in their own selves, that they view it as, I just need extra support in order to get there, rather than there's
that
something wrong with me.
Or that I have a deficiency, or there's something wrong with me. I love that. And remember, words really matter to our kids. So as much as I'd like to say sometimes, what is wrong with you? Why would you hit your sister out of nowhere? Hold back.
Yeah.
Use that pause. Regulate yourself. Okay, you can say that in the bubble in your head, but when you come back, what happened? Why did that happen? Okay? But don't, I cringe every time I hear parents actually, what is wrong with you? Why are you doing that? I'm guilty of it too. I've done it plenty of times, but as I've become more self-aware, I'm like, that was really what it's telling your kid is, what is wrong with you?
Right.
Right? Why are you always doing the wrong thing? Okay, and then that's that.
You are wrong.
You are wrong, and that message is what gets ingrained. So please be careful with your words when you're upset with the children.
Yeah, that's a good place to end on, because, yes, that is super important, and, gets back to, I think, what we discuss a lot in here is, a lot of this is our own stuff too. Some of us have siblings that maybe we still don't get along with. I love mine. But and I'm saying, I mean, she listens to the podcast, but I do actually love her, even if she didn't listen to it. I
love both of my siblings, and they don't listen to this podcast. How's that for you?
Put it out into the universe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, we always have to be regulating our own selves before we go into these conversations and assistance, because it helps just produce a better result when we can be the calm presence in the room to.
And you know what? If you forget it, it's okay.
Yeah.
I won't lash at you. We've all done it. We're all human.
Right.
So we'll have these great goals, but if you lose it, it's how you recoup from you having lost your stuff.
Right.
You have to call yourself out on it with your kids, and that's a way of modeling, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was heated up in the moment. I did not mean to scream at you or yell at you. That was not the right way to handle this situation.
Yeah.
See, mom can lose her mind also, just like you would.
Mm-hmm.
So give me a couple of minutes and I'll come back how I could have done it better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, hopefully we've given you some good tips on how to, help teach your children conflict resolution and problem solving.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
and
what
manage
sibling
these-
rivalry teaches you.
Exactly.
Hey, my last thing actually is my favorite book of all times, is Siblings Without Rivalry. This has been a classic written by two women psychologists, Adele Farber and Elaine Maslav.
Okay.
But it
We'll
is
put a link
Siblings,
to it, yeah.
Siblings Without Rivalry. They published it the first time in the 80s. They've had multiple other editions. I love their books. They have two big books, how to talk to your kids. So how to talk to your kids so they will listen, how to listen so your kids will talk. And then this other one, Siblings Without Rivalry. They're oldies, they're classics for parenting, but I really, really adore how their wisdom, the author's wisdoms, the psychologists. Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess then we'll see you in the next one.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.